hello again. We're back in Key West, the Conch Republic. And so the Conch Economist is back in the Conch Republic. I'm standing in front of the West Martello Fort, or what's left of it. There are 3 forts in Key West, and they were built in the 1800s. 2 of them were never completed. They didn't see much action, but there are 3 forts here. This one today is used by the Garden Club of Key West, and today there was a wedding here. But anyway, we're here to talk about Florida. Florida, the 3rd largest state, nearly 24 million people, and an annual budget at the state level of $115 billion. The state has a AAA credit rating by all the major credit agencies, a higher credit rating than even the U.S. government, which is AA+. And how does it do it without a state income tax on personal income? We're going to have the details and look at the numbers.
The background today will be various scenes from around Key West. The Florida state budget for fiscal year 2025-26 is about $115 billion. Now, there are various funds that comprise the state budget. The largest one is the General Revenue Fund of about $50 billion. There is also a transportation fund, and there's also a fund for operations, maintenance, and capital improvements. The 6% state sales tax generates the bulk of the revenue. It generates a little over $37 billion, which is about 75% for the General Revenue Fund, and 64% of all state collections. Florida doesn't have a personal income tax, but it does have a corporate income tax, which brings in about 10% to the General Revenue Fund, which is roughly $5 billion, and the corporate income tax rate is 5.5%. In addition to the General Revenue Fund, there is the State Transportation Trust Fund, which handles roads and so forth, and it's funded mainly by the gas taxes, and it spends about $12 billion a year. The gas tax in Florida on a per gallon basis, as far as gas is concerned, is about 38 cents per gallon, and this can vary slightly depending on what part of the state you're in. The Education Trust Fund gets most of its money from the Florida lottery profits and a tax on slot machines in Broward and Miami-Dade counties. These revenues go into the Educational Enhancement Trust Fund, which supports K-12 schools and works to reduce class size and other education programs. For the current fiscal year, this contributed over $500 billion to the school funding formula. The General Revenue Fund, which we discussed earlier, mostly from sales taxes, covers the bulk of education spending. And the current budget for the current fiscal year for all education is $31.8 billion. This covers K through 12, plus the community colleges and the universities. In addition, local property taxes are an additional source of funding for education at the local level. The trust fund for the operation and maintenance of state lands is supported mainly by proceeds from the documentary stamp tax on real estate transactions. These revenues flow directly into the Land Acquisition Trust Fund and related accounts, which help to cover the cost of operating and maintaining and capital improvements on state-owned conservation lands and support for water management. Some additional revenue also comes from things like the sale and lease of state lands and permits on state properties. When you buy real estate or sell real estate in Florida, there's a documentary stamp tax on the deed, which is 70 cents per hundred or $7 per thousand. This generates about $3.8 billion in total revenue in a year, and a big chunk of that, about $1.26 billion, goes right into the Land Acquisition Trust Fund. Example, if you are buying a $400,000 property in Florida, the documentary stamp on that at $7 per thousand would be $2,800. Since the sales tax is the largest revenue generator, let's take a better look at that. It's a statewide sales tax of 6%, sales and use tax applied to a broad range of items. And counties can add an additional 2.5% to it if they want. Collier and Citrus County currently do not levy any additional tax. Hamilton County levies 2%, which is the highest in the state. 19 counties add 1.5%, such as Alachua, which is Gainesville, University of Florida, Hillsborough County, which is Tampa, Escambia County, which is Pensacola, and Monroe County, which is the Florida Keys and Key West, add 1.5%, bringing the total then at retail to 7.5%.
That concludes my program for today. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing. Share this with others, and I'll see you next time.